There are many different types of villains out there. Some villains are maniacal and all-powerful dark lords who hold entire worlds and universes at their mercy. Others are deeply tragic individuals whose lives of torment and pain have made them into corrupted beings who reflect all the terrible things they've experienced onto others with their actions. Actors are much the same, with wide ranges of skill sets making certain actors shine in some roles and falter in others. Even so, there is always a category for nearly anything that transcends all others, the one that stipulates who or what are the greatest of all time. And for actors, that means a person who you could slot in nearly any role, in nearly any film, no matter of what quality, that immediately make it greater by several magnitudes due to their presence alone. Philip Seymour Hoffman, a man who was taken from this world far too soon, was one such actor. And just as Hoffman fell into a different category of actor, so too does Owen Davian fall into a different category of villain. One where the intricacies of the character aren't necessarily found through examining their crimes or delving into their backstory, but in the way they do what they do, their speech patterns, the words they use, and how they present themselves, all of which seem to make the atrocities they commit secondary to the diabolical nature of their person. Hello everyone, and welcome to the 230th episode of Analyzing Evil. In this episode, we're going to be discussing one Owen Davian, the central antagonist of Mission Impossible 3, and a character who I believe is worthy of appearing somewhere on the list of greatest film villains of all time. And after watching this film, and delving into the gritty details of his character throughout this video, perhaps you might feel the same. But let's not spoil too much about this fantastic character now. So without further ado, let's begin. As decent of an action film as Mission Impossible 3 is, there is no doubt that Owen Davian is the prime reason why this film is remembered so fondly. And perhaps knowing this would be the case, J.J. Abrams, the film's director, made sure to make that known from the very beginning. In the opening scene of this film, we're shown a tense exchange between Owen and our hero, Ethan Hunt, with Ethan tied to a chair sitting across from an unknown woman who's in a similar state, and Owen interrogating Ethan about the whereabouts of something called the Rabbit's Foot, all while he's pointing a gun at this woman's head and threatening to shoot her after he counts to 10 if Ethan doesn't tell him where it is. Now, why this scene was a perfect opener for this film isn't because it shows us that the stakes are high for our hero, but because it shows you right from the get-go that this man is the reason that you'll want to keep watching this movie. Why? Because aside from the small bout of anger he shows us here, Owen Davian is as calm as can be. With two people at his mercy and a gun to a woman's head, Owen treats this moment as if it were no more significant than conducting a transaction at a grocery store. His face betrays no emotion, his words are flat, and his eyes have this cold steeliness to them that shows you that for this man, everything going on here is just another Tuesday to him. And that's as striking as it is terrifying. And this aspect of his personality is the prime reason why Owen Davian is such an effective and diabolical villain. The words psychopath and sociopath get thrown around a lot in fiction when describing villains, and while the accuracy of those labels is often true to some extent, it's very rare for a villain to truly embody these monikers to the letter. A notable example of a pure psychopath that I've used in previous episodes is Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men, a man who has little to no personality and lives for the singular purpose of hunting down men and killing them. Now, the absence of any notable personality traits aside from apathy and a complete lack of empathy or mercy aren't necessarily the keys to identifying a psychopath, for the disorder that this term falls under, antisocial personality disorder, is a lot more nuanced than that, with millions of people across the globe having this disorder who you might never know have it, that lead perfectly ordinary lives. But what we're talking about here isn't someone who just has ASPD, but who has it to the most extreme degree, a person whose entire life is defined by the symptoms of it. And while finding someone like this is an exceptionally rare thing to find, it's certainly not impossible, nor is a person who is one guaranteed to become some heinous criminal. But it certainly makes someone who is such a criminal infinitely more terrifying. Owen Davian, like Anton Chigurh, is one such person. Owen Davian was a black market arms dealer. And aside from that bit of info, as well as a few throwaway details about what he's done in the past, that's essentially all we know about who he is. But by witnessing his psychopathy in action, we're shown much more about this man than any detailed backstory could ever give us. I mentioned earlier that Owen's matter-of-fact and cold nature is the defining aspect of his personality, but in reality, I misspoke, because it's not just the defining aspect of his personality, but his entire personality. For Owen Davian is an emotional void. There are two scenes where we're shown Owen expressing different emotions. The first being that introductory scene that's also present in the film in the latter half of it, and the scene where Ethan is interrogating Owen aboard an aircraft. In that first scene, Owen gets angry when he's questioning Ethan, and when Ethan doesn't tell him what he wants to hear, he murders the woman sitting across from him, who by this point we've learned is Ethan's wife. But after this happens, we hear Owen speaking to his collaborator and contact in the IMF, John Musgrave, and he says to him that he pushed him as far as he can go, so he knows he isn't lying. What this tells me is that the only reason Owen lashed out in anger here is because he was trying to push Ethan to his utmost limit so he could learn whether he was telling the truth or not, and not because he was actually angry. And in that second scene, the only bit of emotion we're given is a moment of surprise when Ethan plunges him through an opening in the plane's cargo hold. But that's more of an instinctual reaction that any person would have, no matter who they are, and it isn't something worth factoring into his character. So what does this mean? It means Owen Davian is completely lacking anything that it means to be human. He experiences little joy, rage, sadness, or anything else, and emotions, like everything else in this world, are only tools that he uses when necessary to achieve his goals. But what are his goals? What can a man so empty hope to achieve in this world? Nothing and everything. For a man like Owen Davian, life is not something that you find joy in. Everything is mundane, boring, devoid of purpose, and so for a man like that to feel anything, he requires stimuli beyond what any normal person would look to make them feel alive. So Owen Davian finds his purpose in the extreme, in playing with lives like a child might play with dolls, and in building wealth and power for the sake of continuing to do much the same on an even greater scale as he moves through the world with this dread purpose, a simple drive to see just how far he can take things. A villainous man so powerful that he was even given an invite to a Vatican charity event and was able to forge an alliance with an agent of the United States government. And his role in this film is a testament to just how far-reaching his power is. As the director of the IMF states when he's talking about Owen, Owen has been evading their capture for years, if not more than a decade. A man so intelligent, and with a network so far-reaching, that even the top agencies of the US government were incapable of apprehending him. And he then goes on to state that Owen is a provider, and the rabbit's foot, which is a mysterious object whose purpose is revealed in later films that I'll not spoil for you now, is an item he was attempting to provide to John Musgrave so he could sell it on the black market to Middle Eastern terrorist groups on his behalf, and give the US military an excuse to start a war so the US could enrich itself through molding the region into whatever it wishes it to be. Now that's quite the far-reaching and insidious plot, and while you might think that points to Owen as being some fervent ally of the United States and its global hegemony, he definitely isn't, as the only alliance Owen Davian has ever made is with himself. And all these reveals do is reinforce the fact that this man, who has no desire for anything beyond testing the limits of what he can do, is solely operating with Musgrave here so he can continue doing just that. Collect more money so he can collect more people and things so he can play with the world in any way he wishes to. Not even staring death in the face can make Owen's stalwart persona falter, nor can any surprise sprung upon him in a moment of vulnerability. For Owen Davian fears nothing, and nothing could have ever convinced him to be anything less than the monster that he was. A man like Owen doesn't care even slightly about the harm he causes to others or the ramifications of his actions. He has no creed, no faith, and no ideology that he clings to, save for the mantra of doing whatever one pleases just because they can. And he does so without passion, without mercy, and without emotion, just cold sadism and a muted megalomania. He captures Agent Lindsay Ferris after she's been sent to investigate him and plants an explosive in her head that he later detonates to kill her, stating this when referencing it later on.
Now you saw what I did to your little blonde friend at the factory, right? Oh, that was nothing. That was fun. That's fun.
In that same scene, with his dead eyes and his monotone voice, he makes a threat so menacing to Ethan that it should send shivers down the spine of anyone who witnesses it.
Every organization.
What the hell is your name?
Names, contacts, inventory lists.
You have a wife, girlfriend?
It's up to you how this goes.
Because you know what I'm gonna do next? I'm gonna find her. Whoever she is, I'm gonna find her and I'm gonna hurt her.
You were apprehended carrying details of the location of something codenamed the Rabbit's Foot.
I'm gonna make her bleed and cry and call out your name. And you're not gonna be able to do shit. You know why?
What is a Rabbit's Foot?
Because you're gonna be this close to dead.
And who is the buyer?
And then I'm gonna kill you right in front of her.
When he ends up catching Julie, Ethan's wife, he almost accomplishes what he said he would do, murdering a woman in the process just to ensure that Ethan wasn't lying while he was interrogating him, and later nearly killing Julie with a bullet, and Ethan with the same device he used to kill Lindsay, offering us a confirmation of his prescience when he's beating Ethan to a pulp during this final exchange.
I told you she called your name?
Ethan!
Owen Davian is like a cat playing with the mouse that is the world of men. A man who is quite simply pure evil, one that doesn't care at all for the world or the people in it, and a man who, had he lived any longer than he did, may have reached heights so great that the entire planet may have been at his mercy. But in the end, a man like Owen Davian is always doomed to be destroyed in some way. But as a testament to just how cunning and powerful this man was, it would not be a planned effort to take him out that brought him down, nor was it a flaw in his own schemes, but an accident, a car careening into his body that would finally send him off where he belongs. Because a man who was so utterly evil, so completely in control of every dark aspect of his world, could only be destroyed by an act of fate, for no amount of human action could have hoped to take him down. Owen Davian might not be the most intricate villain ever conceived, but it's his simplicity that adds ever more weight to his horrifying persona. A man whose villainy is derived from his complete lack of a soul, a monstrosity wearing a man's skin who would annihilate you and everyone else you love without so much as a flicker of emotion crossing his face, and for being a demon that was more than capable of hiding in plain sight. His character and his actions hit very close to home. The man walking the streets, not the monster under your bed that could very well be the death of us all, and the manifestation of evil. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Analyzing Evil, and I hope you've enjoyed. What are your thoughts on Owen Davian? Did I miss anything? Let me know down below, and leave a suggestion for a villain you'd like to see covered while you're at it. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. A big thank you to all of my subscribers, my patrons, my members, anyone who's decided to honor me with a super thank, and especially Elijah Kai VA, our Dark Lord channel member, and a most vile thank you to those whose names you're seeing on screen now. Join the channel's Discord server and subreddit to interact with myself and the community, and follow me on the social media platforms listed below to keep up with the channel. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you soon.